Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you all for being here today. I've really appreciated hearing from each and every one of you. I want to say to Mr. Shakespeare, it was several years ago, probably about 6 or 7 years ago, it was actually a member of Congress whose daughter was one of the first to receive the treatment that your son treated. And you mentioned something about the stars aligning, and she was one of the lucky ones where the stars aligned as well. And this requires early diagnosis and treatment, which is what we talk about all the time. In improving medicine requires early diagnosis and treatment. A close acquaintance of my family who happens to be on Medicaid had the same similar situation, but when she was pregnant, she was only offered termination. And that's a sad day in America. Dr. Suarez, you talked about home health and things like that. We're working on that, home health, hospital at home, and I do want to talk, and I'll ask you something later, about the delays that you brought up, the delays in care that are offered. Mr. Cullimore, you hit on a few things. You talked about MSIT being repealed by the Biden administration, which held up then new innovations getting to market. The Biden administration promised they'd come out with a new form of it. They did not. And so we have our bill, which you mentioned, and I appreciate that. So you guys are hitting on all cylinders today as far as I think this committee is concerned. I'm co-chair of our Doctors Caucus, and really one of the themes that we're trying to promote in Washington, too often when you bring up health care, everyone starts talking about Medicare, Medicaid, Affordable Care Act, Blue Cross Blue Shield. They're not talking about the health of patients. And that's the problem. And our goal should be to make America the healthiest nation on the planet and work towards that. Besides, that's where the real return on investment is. Prevention, cures, all of these things that we're talking about today. I practice predominantly in an urban area, but I represent urban and rural. So these issues are common throughout, especially in underserved areas. But one of the things that's a real concern to me in medicine today, and we really need your voice out there so that Congress does act on some of the things, similar to what we did with semiconductors, we need to do for pharmaceuticals, especially generics. We're reliant on China for our generic medications. We've got to turn that around. It is a national security risk. It is a national health security risk. When my daughter can't get amoxicillin for her ear infection, that's a problem. And so this is something that I would like to address. We talked about, pro-growth tax incentives. We're on board. I have a bill to address the generic issue. Just can we at least look at our battlefield medicines? If you'd have told me when I was a surgeon in Iraq that I relied on China for my protective equipment and my pharmaceuticals, how did we get here? We have to turn this ship around. And we need everybody talking about that and the dangers involved with that. So maybe we can do like we did with semiconductors and address some of those tax issues that would allow us to bring that back. And I do have a bill up for draft discussion. If we can at least start with our battlefield medicines, will that not tug at some people's heartstrings to say, yes, we've got to make that domestic? So we need your help in that area too. But Dr. Suarez, you mentioned step therapy. I've had that bill for years. I don't know why we can't get that through. The Safe Step Act, as it's called. We're going to continue to push that. Same with prior authorization bills. It's speed up care. You have decisions being made by people that don't see patients, and some have never seen patients. And this is a real problem in patient care because it all comes down to that. So one of the questions I have for you, Dr. Suarez, it comes to you do clinical trials. Thank you for doing that. That's how we get things to market. And you know the problem of getting through FDA approval. But it's even tougher for you treating patients when you get something approved by FDA with the indication of something you're treating and Medicare won't cover it. Can you address that relationship with your patient and how that's affected when someone else is deciding that they can't get something that can make them healthy?
Yeah, thank you for the question. And This is very upsetting. I had several patients that I would like to have provided a treatment. In this case, we're talking about radioligands, radioisotopes, and even though it has been approved by the FDA for one niche of what the therapy benefits, is not really paid by Medicare to all the indications. So my patients die because I cannot give them the treatment that they deserve. And, you know, thankfully we have done a lot of innovations and I have much more treatment options for my patients, but that particular treatment is the cornerstone of longer progression-free survivals and survivals from these patients. I had personally lost patients because I had not been able to provide the treatments because I've been told that they were not covered by Medicare, and that's unacceptable to me.
That seems immoral and sinful to me, and people that aren't standing over patients trying to help them making those decisions. Thank you. I yield back.